Hey everyone, happy Monday. It is time for some coffee, or after this past week, maybe a few adult beverages. It is Monday night. Welcome to Coffee with Colin, another episode. Tonight, I have one of my really good friends here. He is the co-host of the number one talk show in all of Chicago, Windy City Live. And he's had me on his show. And I just wanted to return the favor because he's such a cool guy. And there's a lot of things that I think I could learn from him doing this talk show. So as someone, as an actor, I just started doing this talk show because it was all about pivoting, I was planning on doing a live one-man show across the country this past year. And of course, with COVID and everything that happened, much like everyone out there, life just shifted and changed. And what is it all about? It's all about learning how to take what life gives you and making the best of it, because you can focus on the negative, you can complain, and you can just, sit there and wonder why things have happened. You could adopt that victim mentality, or you can literally look at whatever it is that you're dealing with and ask yourself, how can I make the most of this? How can I turn this situation into something that is even better than what I was planning on doing? So I was planning on going on this one-man show tour around the country, and this talk show, because of the tour getting canceled, my amazing team at Remix, they were like, all right, you know what? Let's use what we have. And that's what I've learned with my acting. And that's what I share in all of my, my talks that I give, and in my Inspire course that we just started another one last week. It's all about learning how to be agile, which is one of the words in the name of my book, Agile Artist. It's all about taking what life gives you and learning how to use it to your benefit, how to grow from it. How can you use whatever life throws at you to become better, become more, acquire more wisdom, to have a better relationship, to be able to learn how to do something that will take you to that next level in life. And, as someone who was an actor who literally would have my lines given to me, as actors, we are given a script and we memorize those lines. We show up on set and we bring life to those words. But with a talk show, as someone who is interviewing someone else, a lot of it has to do with improvisation and learning how to think on your feet. And my guest tonight is one of the best in the business at doing this. He's won an Emmy for this. And I can't wait to ask him about, how to just become better at this, because we're all learning, we're all doing new things. And you know what? The important thing to do is just start. You don't have to be an expert at whatever it is that you want to do in life. A lot of the times just starting and knowing that, you're probably going to make mistakes when you first start, but the more you do it, what happens? You get better at doing it. You get feedback, and you use that feedback to grow, to get better. And it's important to just give yourself a break whenever starting something new. Because I think as we get older, we give ourselves less permission to fail. And as one of my acting teachers so wisely said, you got to dare to suck. And so tonight, I'm going to be on the hot seat because my friend Ryan Chiaverini is going to share with us what I do good, what I do bad as a talk show host. And for those of you who are looking to start your own podcasts, for those of you who are looking to create your own YouTube television show, you're not going to want to miss this, because Ryan is going to share with us some of the things that he learned in broadcast school. He went to the University of Colorado, and he's going to share with us some of the things that he's learned that has enabled him to be able to create his successful career. Because Windy City Live, which is the talk show that he's on, this is his 10th season doing Windy City Live. Him and his co-star Val Warner took over Oprah Winfrey. So Oprah Winfrey, actually, her studio is a block away from where I currently live, and his show took over after the Oprah Winfrey show. I mean, talk about difficult act to follow, but this guy stepped in with his co-host Val, and they've been doing an amazing job. And I actually had the privilege of co-hosting with Val when Ryan was on vacation. I don't know if you knew that, Ryan, but it was awesome, amazing experience. And we're blessed to have Ryan on the show tonight. So without further ado, Please put your hands together for Mr. Ryan Chiaverini.
Me too. I put my hands together too. All right.
Yes. What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
I've ever applauded myself. I love it. Woo! We don't have audiences these days live, so this is
everything is a vacuum right now. So it's like, is anyone out there?
No, you're doing great, by the way. I'm engaged watching you. Yeah. Hey, you know what's funny is like you wanted to dive into what I do, and I wanted to dive into what you do my whole life. It's like my biggest regret that I didn't pursue acting harder, and I didn't. I think that back in those days, I was afraid to fail, and I was afraid to just be unemployed and be, not have direction and be searching.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's what people say, oh, what would you tell your younger self, that kind of thing. I was always like, I would have went for what you did, because what I do is fun and I love it. But I think we're always like engaged in what somebody else can do, a different talent. Every athlete wants to be a singer. Every singer wants to be an athlete. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I think sometimes when we have a natural talent for something, we don't realize that maybe that natural talent is something that other people wish they had. And, like the movie Rudy, where, he's like, his dream is to play for the Notre Dame, Fighting Irish. And he gets there, and the guys that are huge and are able, they've got the scholarships. They don't necessarily have like as much of the desire or the heart that Rudy had, because, he was smaller and, he just wasn't as big and as strong as everyone else. I think sometimes we take for granted some of the skills that we do have, or the things that we do have in our lives. And I think especially right now with what's going on, and we're stuck at home with our significant others and our families, I think this has really made us take pause and look at what are the things in our life. We're taking stock at what are the things that we used to take for granted, just even being able to go to dinner, right, and just be able to be with our friends. And how do we get through all of this? So, Ryan, please tell us, how do we get through all of this?
Here are all the answers, Colin. No, I think you touched on a lot of great points. And the one thing that I really hope comes out of all this is maybe more appreciation, more gratitude for the simple things of friends.
Yeah,
the fact that you and I are friends and we're sitting here in our own places talking virtually. We're lucky that technology is with us and it allows us to be able to have these conversations, but at the same time, we miss that human interaction. And I think that that's been tough. But speaking of Rudy, I walked on and I played college football, and I know what it's like to really want to be great at something, and your path, gets shut down because my twin brother got drafted. He played in the NFL, played for Cleveland, Dallas, and Atlanta. I walked on the hard way like Rudy did, and I wanted to go to the pros so badly, and it just wasn't my calling. And people always ask me, well, they did when I was playing. Hey, why did your brother play in the NFL and you didn't? And I would tell them, same reason why you didn't. Didn't ask me. So I sort of had to find out, what am I good at? What do I like doing? And I was doing campus radio and TV. I was doing some theater as well. And the TV thing kind of just took off, and I was able to get a job in Great Falls, Montana, shooting, writing, producing. And I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I got my first paycheck. It was so bad. But it taught me a lot, and I was hungry. And so I think it brought that same kind of, and that no matter what you do in life, and it's not all about being famous, as you know, Colin, it's just about finding your passion, whatever that passion is. And when you can't take no for an answer. So many people said, oh, you're a dreamer. I remember a coach said that to me, actually, that you're a dreamer on that. Like, that's so hard to make it in something like that. I know, right?
Yeah, so, that's a bad thing.
It kind of drove me even more. And I'm sure people have told you that coming up when you were acting. It's like, oh, you'll never be. It's so hard to be an actor. It's so hard to be a working actor. But you can't take no for an answer. Whatever your path is, that's really the key.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. After I started to work, and I was, I would meet people and they'd be like, oh, what do you do? And for the longest time, I felt like a fraud saying I'm an actor, because I was studying acting and I'd done like a few guest star roles. I was the cappuccino guy on like my first job, and I was a male escort on Law and Order. But I mean,
like real life.
Yeah, right. And so I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I've booked a couple of roles, but when people said like, what do you do? When I then started to actually, like, when I booked All My Children and some of these other roles where I felt like, okay, you know what? I legitimately feel like I am a professional actor. It's funny how some people were just like, oh, so like, you're an extra. Like, what have you been on? Like, well, I've actually been on this show. Like, so like, did you have lines? Did you speak? Did you say anything? I'm like, it's kind of hard to like. It's not about like it's hard to like. You don't want to sound like a jerk saying like, dude, just go watch this movie or whatever. But then it's funny when people say like, oh, you're a real actor. Oh, wow. I didn't like, some people don't realize that the amount of time and energy and effort it really takes to get to where you really want to go in life. And so sometimes I think it's better not even to bring it up until you feel comfortable enough to where you feel like, you know what, you're okay in whatever it is that you're doing, so that you don't feel like you have to explain it to anyone. Because like you said, if you're pursuing what matters to you, I think that's first and foremost the most important thing. And then everything else, someone is always going to have an opinion. Someone is always going to have, like, even when I, had finally made it, people were like, well, oh, you're an actor. You know how difficult that is. Yeah, I kind of think I have an idea because I've been doing it for 15 years. And I think because so many people watch so much TV, they have an idea of like what the business is really about. And it's sometimes I just have to kind of laugh and smile when I'm like, if you only knew,
Oh, no, quite. And that's what's the beauty of my job is I get to meet, that's how we met, right? Through Windy City Live. And I get to meet so many different people from different walks of life, whatever they do. And it's always fun to kind of see what people's passion is, whether, they're an actor or singer, or whether they are a teacher, or, whatever their profession is, why did they choose that? How committed they are to it. And and I'll tell you, acting is very, very difficult. A lot harder than people think it is. I've gotten to do some small roles. I was in an episode of Shameless, and of course I'm playing a reporter, but I had a long monologue and I was memorizing my lines, and you had all these extras in the back, and everybody's reset if you screw something up. So it's like so much pressure. It's like I do Windy City Live every day. I don't think twice about it. But when you're on a set, you don't want to waste people's time. You don't want the director to think that they made a mistake casting you. And then I did an episode of General Hospital. I was a bartender with like 5 lines. But it was amazing to see how soaps work because, as you know, you guys roll through that. Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of take two. It's like they get their lines. Some of them had their scripts right on the set. They're literally running down. They put their script underneath, and then they just nail it. It was really impressive. So I think the most fun part about my job is being able to appreciate what other people do for a living in our medical community, whatever, teachers, lawyers. Like, it's just to see somebody in their element is cool.
Yeah. You say you're like, you do the show now and it's kind of like second nature. When you first started, did you have those moments of like, oh crap, like, what do I say? What am I going to, and in journalism school, did you feel like you were prepared coming out of journalism school to be able to be on set and actually interview people? What was that like for you when you first got your first gig?
Yeah, I think that I learned more just hands-on from doing it in the first 3 months of my job, my first job, than I did 4 years of journalism school. It's like, police officers and firefighters, they can do all the training that they can do, but until you're seeing live bullets, and what they do is far more important than what we do in entertainment. But until you're really in the action, you can't really get a good vibe of it. But see, Windy City Live is very much ad-libs, like what we're doing. We're just having a conversation. I think the biggest thing for me is in the morning, I get a great list from my producers that catches me up on any stories I may have missed. So it's just being prepared. I remember seeing and reading a book by Bob Costas, who I think is probably the best journalist of our lifetime. Yeah. He said, nobody will ever be more prepared than I am for an interview. And I remember thinking that's the key. You have to be prepared, whether it's an interview, whether it's you going on set, which congratulations on the new movie coming out.
Thank you very much.
See, I'm so happy to want to turn this interview around. We're going to do that on Windy City Live.
Yeah.
The name of the movie again?
It's called 100 Days to Live. And it comes out February 2nd on pretty much all the platforms, Apple TV, Amazon, pretty much everything, like on demand. So
it looks good.
Come on Windy City and talk about it.
That's right. February 1st, you'll be on Windy City. So I think the Ryan was a natural in General Hospital. Oh, you're way too sweet. I love you. Yeah, I just think that being prepared, Bob Costa saying that, I just remember, it's one of those things I just remember from the time I was in college. Know who your subject is, know what they've done, their body of work, or what they want to talk about. I think that's the biggest thing when you're prepared for an interview, then you feel a lot better about it. If you're going into an interview and you don't really know what you're talking about, it's never going to go well,
Yes, I pretty much experience that every Monday night. I'm like, okay, well, I'm like on the internet. I'm like, okay, so what did they do? And so I think it's fun just because I like the improv element of it, where with acting, what your lines are, and it's important to make it new every time you do it again. And some directors, like a Stanley Kubrick, will do 100 takes of a scene, whereas like other directors like Woody Allen or Clint Eastwood will do like 2 or 3, similar to like soap opera. And the key for an actor is to how can you make it new and fresh every time. And like people like a Julia Roberts, she doesn't like to do a whole lot of rehearsal before going on camera because she feels like she's only got a few of those special takes in the can. And I read Paul Newman's biography, and he liked to do a ton of rehearsal, and he was working with Elizabeth Taylor, who was like Julia Roberts. She didn't like to do a whole lot of rehearsal. So it was like, what is your acting style? And, everyone has their own different style on how they prepare and how they work. And I think that's the key to a good director and a producer. And how do you bring all these elements together and make sure they all work properly? So I'm sure you've seen that on your show.
My co-host and me are way different in the way we prepare. I like to be prepared. I like to make sure I know what the script is in the prompter, even though we're ad-libbing a lot. I just like to know what's next. She actually likes the improv part of it. She doesn't want to be because she feels like she's more animated when I can set up the story. And it's kind of like, I give her the alley-oop and then she slams it. It's a good teamwork, but it works because I know the details of the story, and then she can, really just hammer home the, some of the humor part of it. And then we have some of our best banter. We never talk about what we're going to talk about until we get on the air. Yeah, sometimes we're dying to tell each other something, or we're curious about an opinion on a story that we're going to cover.
Yeah.
Or save it for the air. Save it for the air. La, 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 la. Like, no, because we want that spontaneity. And that's the biggest thing, I think, in talk shows and movies, right? It's like, you guys are very scripted. We are very not scripted on our show. I mean, news shows are much different.
And it's funny because when I've been on Windy City Live or a lot of other like news shows, it's only like maybe a 5-minute interview, and it's hard to cram. Like, how do you cram all that information? How do you know what questions to ask that you think are going to be the most important and relevant for that interview?
Yeah. Well, you know what? The biggest thing is, you got to hit the big stuff out of the gate, right? It's like Barbara Walters always said she waits to the last question to ask the toughest question. I agree with that in some ways, because she basically said, if I'm interviewing a tough subject, I don't want him to get up or her to get up after the first question and leave the room. You want to try to build some trust and some, a chemistry, but that is difficult. When you only have 5 minutes, it's tough to get chemistry with the person you're interviewing,
Yeah.
But I think that if you read up on them and you find something that's fascinating about the person, I think that it's always a good sort of icebreaker to come out with that. If you find out this person was, I don't know, the spelling bee champion in 3rd grade, and you read that in somebody's bio, to me, when I'm interviewing a subject, I always think that's a fun way to open, because once you can open, you establish a little bit of chemistry, then the interview can kind of go anywhere you want, but it's like getting out of the gate is important. And you want to get out of the gate on a kind of a good note, because I've had interviews where, like, we interviewed one of Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriends, and the interview got out. We asked about it. The interview, we didn't really know that we weren't supposed to ask about it. And the interview got off to a weird start, and we never really recovered, Yeah.
So what would you say is one of your, besides that one, what was one of your like toughest interviews?
I've had a few awkward ones over the years. Jerry Piven's wasn't my favorite. That actually never got on air because he didn't sign the release. But I do this bit called the 2-minute warning, and it's very comedic, but you have to be self-deprecating.
Yeah, we've done that.
Yes, we did one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the biggest stars ever, including Colin Egglesfield, have done it, and they're not afraid to laugh at themselves. He didn't get the humor in it, and it didn't go well, and we had to like stop it mid-shoot. And sometimes that's just going to happen. You're going to do 1,000 interviews that you're not going to be Babe Ruth and hit 1,000 home runs. Nobody does. But the late night guys, like I think Kimmel is a really good interviewer because he's funny and he says some things that are like irreverent, but he has a nice delivery about him to where he's likable, even if he says something that's kind of edgy. And plus, when you're Jimmy Kimmel asking a question to a big star, they know who Jimmy Kimmel is. That helps, and that's actually going to help you. So for me, when I'm interviewing an A-list celebrity, they don't always know who I am. And so it takes you a minute to sort of get some chemistry going there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see yourself doing late night television ever?
I would love to, but there's only 3 guys in the world that have those jobs. They're pretty tough jobs to get. So I'm certainly thankful for where I'm at. And it's cool because we have sort of established ourselves as one of the go-to stop in Chicago. So we get a lot of these actors that are coming through, just as you were, but coming through on their media tour. And I've gotten to interview, The Rock, and Kevin Hart's been in studio, and Will Ferrell. And so it's kind of cool to at least be on that circuit of the late night big shows, and we can land those kind of guests.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so for anyone who's thinking about going into journalism or becoming a host or something like that, because it's hard enough to be an actor, but there's a lot of acting jobs out there. I would think that there's less hosting jobs. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's a tough niche. It's a tough nut to crack. I mean, nobody really starts in hosting. Like I was a sportscaster. That was kind of how I was lucky to make the transition because Oprah, God bless her, decided to retire. Oprah doesn't retire at that moment. Maybe this show doesn't happen because we went on the air the day after she retired in Chicago, which is like career suicide. Everybody was saying, don't do this. You got a great gig in sports. You do this. And the write-ups were not kind in the beginning. And we were lucky that our bosses stood by the show. They believed in the show. And we were able to sort of carve out our own niche in Chicago and eventually be accepted and loved by the city. But it took time. And there are not a lot of hosting jobs out there. I always say, get your journalism degree, because no matter what, you have a journalism degree, right? And then in today's world, you really should look at monetizing things outside of traditional news and TV shows, because there's so many apps out there now. There's so many ways to generate income with YouTube stars. There's just so many other things. We don't know what our business is even going to look like 5 years from now. I mean, it's kind of scary that the job market's getting smaller and smaller, but the acting market seems to be getting bigger with all the streaming platforms.
There's definitely a lot more opportunity, but because the audiences are being spread out over all these different platforms, it's I think harder to make a living as an actor because the budgets for each of the shows have gone down. So what I used to be able to make on a show is just not what I used to be able to make in the past. So you really have to hit that, being that primetime actor on that primetime show. Film is a very difficult business to be in right now because unless you're a $200 million blockbuster film, a lot of the movies that were in that $10 to $30 million budget range, like a Pretty Woman, the romantic comedies, a lot of that stuff, just unfortunately, the box office returns weren't there. So the studios are hesitant to put money into to making those kinds of movies because it costs so much money to market a film nowadays that unless you have like an A-list big name celebrity in your film, it's really hard to make, to break into film nowadays. But yeah, definitely a lot of opportunity with TV. And what's great is I'm seeing so many people just creating their own stuff like YouTube and even on TikTok. It's amazing to see how some of these people are just creating these massive followings, and it's great because the gate to entry into entertainment has definitely been democratized.
Yeah, I think my advice to anybody trying to get in is adopt a lot of tigers. Okay, adopt a bunch of tigers and then a camera crew, and you will be famous in no time.
Yeah, just don't go to jail for
the guy wanted to be famous in life.
Yeah,
he gets famous and he can't even enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's the irony there. Yeah, but I do. When I first came out of school, or just when I was young in my career, and I would talk to students, or I would talk to college, journalism students, I would tell them, hey, you got to go to the small market. This is what I did. I carried a camera. I wrote and I produced and I did it all. And then I went on the air that night. That was the traditional way. We all went to small towns. We all worked our way up, and then we eventually, hopefully, would get to a big market like Chicago.
Yeah.
Now, I just think that there's so many different ways to monetize yourself. And yeah, the YouTube shows, what we're doing right now, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. So I always tell kids, still get your journalism degree, but while you're doing that, start trying to explore. Get in front of a camera. Get comfortable in front of the camera. When you're on a film set, you got to be comfortable. It's the same thing doing a show. If you can relax and just be yourself, and you can make that shine through, and then, you're more vulnerable in some ways because it's your true personality.
Yeah. And
you are hiding behind, I guess, characters, but at the same time, your authenticity needs to come through the camera,
Yeah. I think it's, I almost think it's easier to do this kind of thing because, with acting, you got to make sure you memorize the lines. You got to make sure you deliver, on when you're supposed to deliver. With this, what I'm finding is that, it's you definitely kind of have to be on your toes and think on your feet. But at least with this, it's kind of like, what I think is important about this is just kind of just feeling the energy of where the interview is going, and just kind of like riding that wave of where you see it's going to go. And I think a lot of times in life, we try to control how the outcome is going to go. And this has been a really good exercise in just kind of letting go and just being like, all right, I'm just going to kind of see where this ends up. And it doesn't always end up in a great place, but then sometimes you have those magical moments where you're like, oh my God, that was an incredible conversation.
Right. And that's exactly what it has to be. So like right now, I'm listening, to everything that you're saying. And I think that when you first start interviewing people, at least it was for me when I was young, it was hard to know where I wanted to go with the interview and still be able to listen and not be thinking, oh, here's my next question. My next question is going to go here. Because, if you're talking to your friend on the phone or we're at a restaurant, we're just listening to each other and we're kind of bouncing off each other. The best interviews are that way. They're just good conversation pieces. And then somebody says something about their career. It might spark you to say, oh, what about this? Oh, yeah, you went to school in, whatever, this town. Yeah. And then it just kind of goes back and forth. And that's always the best. But the interviewee has to be giving too.
Yeah.
And when the interviewee is giving, it sure makes the host job a lot easier. Some people are just tough to interview. They're shy. It's amazing. Some actors I meet, you think they have these larger than life personalities, and they get on set and they don't. Ryan Gosling, I interviewed, not a big personality guy.
Really?
And I was kind of taken back. Like I thought he was
surprising.
I thought he was going to give me more, but he was just kind of mellow.
What do you want? What do you want?
Yeah, it was strange. But yeah, sometimes you get 5 minutes. I interviewed Al Pacino and he was great.
Amazing.
I walked in the room and he's got his big hair, and his suit's too big for him. And I walked in and Pacino is a legend. It doesn't get bigger than that. And I don't get nervous much anymore ever meeting or interviewing people. But when I walked in, and my heart was beating just a little fast because it's Al Pacino, and you don't want to screw up in front of him. And I remember I said, hey, Mr. Pacino, I'm Ryan Chiaverini. He's like, oh, Chiaverini. Yeah, he goes, from Chicago. I said, yeah. He goes, I love that town. Chicago, great town. And I remember we had this great rapport out of the gate about Chicago.
Yeah.
And I thought I got to close with something good for Pacino. So I said, and I was just kind of seeing how the interview went to see if this was appropriate question to ask. And I said, okay, you got to give me the top 3 lines people give you when you're walking through an airport. And he goes, oh, he's like, I get a hoo-ah, like people like hoo-ah at me. Or he goes, sometimes I get, say hello to my little friend. And he goes, and depending on the age, they might say, I'm going to give him an offer you can't refuse. Because, I say that in The Godfather. I'm like, yeah, I'm aware of that. But it's like the guy's had so many iconic movies. It was cool for him.
Yeah.
Like it was like he was strolling down memory lane in his own mind, and you could tell nobody had asked him that. I was trying to think about it that nobody has asked him in the day because he was doing so many interviews that day. Because otherwise, it's like the same thing. Actor, I'm sure like that when you're doing a movie.
Oh man, the press junket where you're literally doing like 50 interviews back to back, like every 10 minutes, a new interviewer will come in from, it could be from South Africa or Australia or wherever it is. And it's like, I so appreciate when an interviewer brings these different questions that just kind of spark a different way that the conversation has been going. Cause just to be able to repeat it over and over again. I think Morgan Freeman actually fell asleep during one of his press junket interviews because it's like the same question over and over again.
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing too, right? As a journalist or as a host, and you're going to interview somebody, try to find a nugget, try to think about a question that maybe they haven't heard yet, especially when people are doing movie junkets. It's difficult on both parties, right? It's like for the host, they're bouncing around trying to interview all these different actors in a short amount of time, and they only have 4 minutes, and they know the actor wants to talk about the movie, so there's certain things that you kind of can't get into. But on a show like this, if you could find fun facts, or today on Windy City Live, we were talking about, would you want to know the future, good or bad? Would you want to know? And this sparked a long, like, would you want to know? Would you want to know your future?
No, I don't. I don't want to know it.
I would.
Dude, would you really?
I said I want to know the good things. I don't really want to know the bad.
Yeah, I mean, because if I knew, like, if someone said, "Yeah, you're gonna die in 3 years," I'd be like, "Holy!" Like, I don't want to know that. Like,
True, but if somebody says you're gonna die in 3 years, don't you think you would live a little bit differently? We like to think we live every day like it's our last, but nobody does that. We don't. No. But if somebody said you only have 3 years, I would change probably some things about my life.
Oh yeah. I definitely
said, I mean, it would be pretty frightening though if somebody said, "Hey, you're gonna get hit by a bus, but I'm not telling you when." You would never get on a bus. Like, I would never leave my house. But I would not.
Exactly.
I would not make it good, because it would be kind of cool if when you're 20 years old and when you were a struggling actor, or when I was trying to come up through TV and I'm making no money and I didn't come from anything, and I'm thinking, "Gosh, is this going to be worth it?" It would have been cool for someone to go, "You know what? It's going to be a great ride for you. The next 20 years is going to be really fun." I think that would have been nice to know.
Well, what I like to do is I like to create that certainty in my head, even though we can't predict the future. I like to actually almost speak the future into existence by saying that I am a professional actor. And this is one of the biggest mindset shifts that one of my acting teachers / life coaches taught me when I was in Los Angeles, because I'd been out in Los Angeles for 3 years, struggling, going on auditions. My acting teachers in my classes said, "Colin, you have the talent to actually be a professional working actor." But it wasn't translating for me going into the room and having the casting director actually be like, "Yes, this is the guy." It's not just the talent. It is like the mindset of knowing that when someone walks into the room, much like when you go on that first date, you can tell within the first couple seconds if you think this person has something of interest that you want to get to know more.
Sure.
And I just found myself not being able to book the job. And once this, my acting teacher said, instead of saying you want the job, write down and journal that I have the job. I am so grateful that I am a professional working actor. And she said, get specific about what that looks like. So I journaled about like being a doctor on a hit television show. I journaled about being a World War II pilot and this is what I talk about like in my book and in my Inspire course, where she had me do this visualization exercise that's similar to the law of attraction.
Yep.
Where when you visualize it
Yep.
and you create that feeling that you already have it, then it's amazing how the universe shows up to then, whether it's someone is like walks into your life or it's a certain opportunity. But the more that you can create that feeling of it already actually happening, to me, that's the fun part of life, in the sense that the world and the universe is your menu. And what do you want to make of it?
Right. I agree with that. And you read The Secret. Someone just mentioned
Yeah,
that. You read,
exactly. Yeah.
Law of attraction. I'm huge on that. You know, what's funny is I have a buddy. He's now out of television. We started together in Great Falls, Montana, tiny little town. And he's really just proud of, where I'm at now. And he goes, it was just so cool, because I remember you used to always say, I'm going to get into a big city. I'm going to make it into a big market. Like, you're getting out of here. You used to say, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to be in a big town, big city.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then you did it. And it was so cool. And I knew nothing about law of attraction. I knew nothing about The Secret at that point. But I remember reading some of this, theory later, and it makes sense. And now I tell people that are more negative people, and I have some friends, and we're all going through tough times. And, these are very tough, difficult times. So I'm always sensitive to that. But at the same time, I tell my friends, listen, you got to speak positivity, because it will reflect back, and the saying, when it rains, it pours, right? It's like when you complain about something, then something else bad happens, and something else bad happens. It's like you're attracting negativity to your life.
Absolutely. And that's the difficult part. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning and you're just like, oh, how am I going to get through this day? But it really is just as simple as it may sound. It's training your mindset to almost have these non-negotiables, where it's not a negotiation of whether or not you go to the gym. It's not a negotiation if you are committed to something in your life. There are certain things that you put into place to actually make that happen. So like for you and having this broadcast journalism career, I'm sure there were certain things that you were like, okay, if I really want to do this on that professional level, then I've got to up my game and I've got to do what it takes. I've got to go to Montana for a little bit, even though I'm not going to make a whole lot of money, because I know it's in service of my vision of being where I want to be. And boom, there you go, being on a show after Oprah Winfrey finishes hers.
Yeah, we had VHS tapes back then. You and I are old enough to have VCRs. So I had my VCR, and it would record my 5 o'clock newscast and my 10 o'clock newscast. Then I was set to record ESPN, and it would record SportsCenter. And I would go home and I'd watch me and I'd watch them. I'd watch me and I'd watch them. It was like game tape. And I was like, why is this guy so much better than me? Like, I'm terrible. It was all about trying to get comfortable and relax and start learning how to read a teleprompter, because people don't realize that is a skill in itself. So it was doing it, right? It was like you have to think about every time you're on a show. This is what my mentor told me. It's like shooting a free throw, right? Shooting a free throw. LeBron's shooting free throws. He's been shooting these free throws his whole life. He's like, there's no reason why an NBA player should ever miss a free throw, really, because you're shooting those free throws. But every time you get more comfortable at the line. So it's like you, when you're on an acting set, I'm sure the first time you were on a professional acting set, it was probably much different than it was on this past film.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Same thing with my show. 10 years ago, Val and I talk about it. Our heart was beating, and we had been in journalism. We'd been in TV for a long time, but it was like this new show everybody was watching. People were already killing us out of the gate. And so we were nervous. Now it's like commercial break, and I'm like, Val, wake up. She's like yawning. I'm like, Val, wake up. Come on. We got to go.
So just to shift gears here a little bit, a friend of mine is planning on moving to Chicago. And as someone, you grew up in Southern California, right? Mm-hmm. As someone who moved to Chicago, what would you say is great about Chicago? What do you love about it? And what would you say to someone who's planning on moving here? What should they do when they get here?
Where are they coming from?
They're coming from Texas.
Okay. All right. So it is going to be a weather shift. I try to warn all of my friends. I've had some friends move here from California, from Florida. They haven't all lasted. The weather's the biggest thing. If you can do 2 years here, you can do 10. But my grandparents lived here. They hated the cold and ended up moving out west. So all my family ended up growing up, out west. But I mean, this city, pre-COVID, and we're going to get back
Yep.
to the energy of the city, the amount of shows and food, and we have so much just in the palm of our hands here. The city is really just has my heart. I don't even say that, I'm a Californian anymore. I'd say I'm a Chicagoan. I mean, and people will take offense to it if you don't say that you're a Chicagoan.
Well, especially if you're on a show called Windy City Live. Yes.
Yeah, which I actually named that show. So that's probably what I'm
really
about the show. Yeah, the show was called Morning Rush as a working title. And I was going through the audition process, and we were auditioning. The audition process in itself was like American Idol. We had like this cocktail party at the Witt Hotel across the street from ABC 7. And there was like Drew Lachey, Nick Lachey's brother was there, Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, Elizabeth Rome, who I think you know, a mutual friend of ours. Great friend of mine. And, so it was like actors, former hosts. We had this big cocktail party. And then we went on to the audition process, and you auditioned with like 8 different people, and they just kind of wanted to see chemistry over the next, 8 minutes with each person.
Okay.
And then they whittle it down. They keep moving it down. And so it really felt like American Idol when we won. And then you win the job, and during that process, I remember they were calling it Morning Rush. And I said, guys, I think you should call it Windy City Live. And if you don't choose me, you can still feel free to use the name. And they chose me and got the name, and I got $0 for that.
Oh, well, I mean, come on. You got to write that into your next contract.
Yeah, with 0 royalties.
So I do a Facebook Live before the show, and I get some questions from my audience, and this is actually relates to what we were just talking about. Joanna Sislak says she wanted to know if you remember the moment. Of course, I'm sure you do. When you found out that you got the job, where were you, and what was your reaction?
I was covering the Cubs at spring training. I used to go out there every year in Arizona, and I was in the media room, and I remember the phone rang because we auditioned in October. Then I had to audition about 3 more times, and I didn't find out until February. I was at spring training. God. My phone rings, and I thought maybe it would be one of the managers or bosses at ABC, and so I stepped out of the media room, and as soon as I answered the phone, it was Emily Barr, our former president and general manager. And I knew as soon as her voice was on the line, I knew she was going to offer me the job. And she just goes, Ryan, it's Emily. I said, hi, Emily. She said, we want to offer you the host position.
Yes.
Would you like to accept? And I said, yes. I want
like an F before that? Like,
no, not to the big boss.
Okay.
In the inner brain, yes, there's a lot going on in there. But there was some debate on whether or not they wanted me to leave the sports department because I was a sports guy at ABC already. So for me to transition, that means they lose their sports guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that, they sort of had plans for me future-wise in the department. So I think there was some debate there, and they let me audition, and I had to talk to some managers and smooth things out. But yeah, it all worked out.
That's awesome.
It was exciting. Yeah. But I didn't know Val. I really didn't know Val. I knew she was on WGN, but I didn't. A lot of people go, guys, it seems like you guys have known each other forever. Now it really feels like we've known each other forever. But in the beginning, we were getting to know each other too and kind of feeling out that chemistry for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you also are a musician, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we used here in Chicago.
Oh, Bub City. Yeah. In the old days when we had shows.
Yeah, exactly.
In the bars and saloons, and there would be a guy up on stage singing. Yeah, I write some music, and my father has made his living as a professional musician for 50 years. Wow. He has a song in the Pulp Fiction movie. That's like his biggest claim to fame. But he was in a band called the Lively Ones. They opened for Sonny and Cher and the Beach Boys in the 60s, and Quentin Tarantino really liked one of his songs, put it on the movie Pulp Fiction. The movie becomes this cult classic and sells all these records,
Which song was it?
Platinum album. It's called Rider. It's right at the very end of the song, the movie, when Travolta and Sam Jackson walk out of the diner. It's the song that starts playing. It was really cool. But the coolest thing is I got to interview Travolta a couple years ago, and I got to tell him the story because we were sitting there waiting for lighting.
Yeah.
We were waiting for lighting and waiting. We were at an Italian restaurant in Chicago. And so I'm talking about establishing chemistry, right? We're just kind of having some small talk. And I tell him the story, and he was the coolest. Have you met Travolta?
I haven't.
Oh, he was the coolest, super nice.
He seems like it. Yeah.
Super interested in the story. And then he goes, "That's one of the coolest factoids anyone's ever told me." I'll never forget that. One of the coolest factoids. And I was like, "You're John Travolta. People tell you like the coolest things every day, I'm sure, or what they think is cool." He was kind. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched an interview that he did, and what he was talking about really struck with me. He said he always wanted to, he's the reason why he became an actor was because he would rather fail at doing something that he wanted to do rather than work for someone else on helping them with their vision and maybe failing at it anyway. He said, I just always thought that, you know what, life is short. And if something really matters to you enough, he's like, it's worth failing for.
Yeah.
And it's worth taking the risk. And he said, I probably could be further off in my career it was something to do with like self-confidence and ownership of who he was as a celebrity, because he even said like, I'm just a guy. I'm just John Travolta. And people like, but you're John Travolta. You've been in all these movies. And he's like, and I really appreciated how humble he was, but almost to a fault though, where he was just like, he's like, I feel like if I owned more, or if I was more like had more of this, like, yeah, I'm John Travolta. He's like, I almost feel like I probably would be further along in my career, but he's like, that's just not who I am. And so I appreciate how just real and authentic he was.
I mean, he's had a pretty good run though, Colin.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Jim Carrey has that great speech that he gave to, the graduating students of that college. And he kind of talks about that, how his dad is the funniest guy that he's ever known in his life. And his dad would have been an amazing, talented comedian, but his dad picked the safe route and went and worked
an accountant
for like 25 years and he got laid off. It's like, you might as well, do what you love to do rather than failing at something that you didn't really love to do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have the chance of failing at whatever you do. You might as well do something that you love doing and fail at that. Because
like when we grew up, it was, you got to have plan B. Remember, it was like, hey, this is what you want to do. And then this is my fallback plan. But it's almost better sometimes not to have a fallback plan. Some of the most successful people I know, they didn't have fallback plans. They were like, this is what I'm good at. This is what I love. I always say this, you can't, people go, oh, you can do anything you want in life. I don't want to say that you can't, but you can't. What you can do is find out what you're great at. You can do anything in life if you can find your talent in it and you have the passion for it. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we all want to be able to jump like Michael Jordan. It wasn't in the cards. Like I wanted to play football, as I mentioned earlier. It wasn't in the cards for me. But so what I did was I thought, okay, well, football's not where it's going to be. The next best thing for me is talking about football. So I, got my journalism degree and became a sportscaster. So it was like I found what I was passionate about and what I was good at. And that's like the biggest thing I would try to tell people. Find something that you're really good at and you're passionate about it.
Yeah, great piece of advice. Yeah. So another question here is, this one's from Carrie Bilbin. What are your New Year's resolutions?
This year, someone tweeted me a clip. It was our first show of 2020. And Val and I are all excited. We're like, hey, happy 2020. This is going to be the best year. I mean, what's a cool ring to it? Just 2020 alone. And I made the plan that I was going to take 12 trips. That was what I was going to do. Because I usually do more about goals rather than like what I'm going to give up. It's more about what do I want to accomplish this year. Yeah. So with traveling last year, clearly that didn't happen. So the bar is very, very low this year. I think I just can't wait to see a live show. That's the number one thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Live concert, Luke Combs with a stadium at Wrigley. That would be pretty cool. I mean, it's just so weird. All those things, like we were saying, we just took for granted.
Took for granted. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the silver lining in all of this is that when we do have that opportunity to finally get back out for that first street festival, what I love about Chicago is every weekend they'll shut down like 4 blocks of a neighborhood and put up, the sound stages, and all the restaurants and bars put all their things in the middle of the street where they sell corn on the cob and hot dogs, and people are walking around in the streets drinking beer and dancing. I mean, it is the best. It is the funnest thing. And I think this is definitely making us realize when we do have that opportunity again, and we will, that we will definitely appreciate it. But in the meantime, I think it's important to really just take this opportunity and just see in what way you can find out how you can, learn something new. Like if you do want to get into journalism and start your own podcast, what better time than ever than to do it right now?
And you know what? Now, I mean, you can purchase, look at this microphone here. You can purchase anything online and figure it out. There's a YouTube video to learn how to do anything.
Everything.
It used to be the book for dummies, right? Everybody would get that book for dummies, no matter what it was. Now you just go on YouTube. I mean, I learned how to play music when I want to learn how to play a song. And this is kind of what I've been doing that's been like cathartic for me. Everybody needs sort of their outlet. So for me, it's like I play music, I write some original stuff. I always try to put a charitable component behind it when we release it. And I'm writing some stuff right now that I'm planning on releasing. It's a passionate hobby for me, which I think everybody should have. It's like, I would love to be Luke Combs too. But for me, it's not where the cards are. But I still love doing it. And I think that, you need those things too during quarantine. This was tough. People think this place looks nice. It's small. I live downtown. So, we did 5 months of shows sitting right where I'm sitting. And, we were all getting driven a little bit cuckoo a little,
Yeah, but I mean, you're making the best of the situation. And because so many people just are inspired by you. They count on you every day to just make their day a little bit better. And that is what is so amazing about you, Ryan. You just have this amazing quality that whenever I turn on TV, you've always got this like amazing energy that just is infectious. And I just want to say thank you for doing what you do, because in these times where there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of unrest, you're one of those few constants every day that make turning on the TV a lot nicer than seeing what we're seeing on the news.
And sometimes, thank you for saying that, Colin, but sometimes it's difficult too. It's like, I am a positive person. And like we were talking about earlier, it's very important to put that in your mindset too. Mm-hmm. But even now we are having some dark days and you're going into work going, man, I hate that we have to talk about this. From so many different, perspectives. It's like, we want to be a happy, uplifting show. And we want to talk about good things, but certain things you just have to address. And so I'm looking forward to later in 2021 when we won't have to be talking about these things. And I'm really, really hoping that, there was a time when we came up when you could respectfully disagree with people. If somebody didn't vote your way, I have family members that vote all different ways, but we also love each other. Have there been some disagreements? Sure. But at the same time, there's respect there. And I just wish our country could get back to respecting people, and whatever way they vote, it's like, let's respectfully disagree. And I've talked to some people on social media that don't agree with everything I say, but I try to respectfully talk with them if I'm going to engage. I don't try not to get super fired up. And we've had an incident where that happened, and I felt bad. We won't get into that, but people get hot-headed about things,
Yeah, well, let's get into it, because why not? So you and I were at a restaurant, Luke Canellis' restaurant. Luke Canellis is sportscaster here in Chicago. And we see how charged these times are, because you and I were just having dinner with a couple of friends, and somehow this couple got up, and what we thought was like just oh, hey, nice to meet you, whatever, turned into this political debate that really got contentious. And it was like, whoa, wait, that just escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was like, we can see just how, people are just very on edge nowadays. So I guess my question to you, Mr. Chiaverini, is if you were president now, what do you think would be a couple of things that you would try to implement to just kind of bring us back to a sense of normalcy, a sense of unity, and a sense that we have something positive to look forward to?
Yeah, I wish I could give everybody a hug.
Yes. Good answer.
Being president now would be a difficult, vice president or president-elect and vice president-elect are going to have their work cut out for them. Biden, Harris, they really are, because I think it's going to take time. It's just, no matter what they do or what they try to implement, I wish I could say this, if they do this, it'll unite us. But that's fairy tale land right now. I mean, you got to realize half the country voted one way and half the country voted the other way. We're super divided right now. But I just think that after this presidency, we might get into a sense of normalcy as far as going back to what our politicians were, whether you voted for John McCain or Mitt Romney or, Barack Obama. When you heard politicians speak, it was still out of respect. And every president that has ever held office has tried to unite the country. And we just really haven't seen that. And that's really been what's so disappointing. But I'm hoping that, Joe Biden is the right man. And everything that he's saying, I think he's saying the right things. It's just going to take time.
Yeah. And I think it's just, I think, like you said, it's important to just, when having these kinds of discussions, even if you disagree with someone, just respect their opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but this cancel culture has, in my opinion, it's got to stop, man. It's like, just because someone says something that you disagree with doesn't mean that, you can just completely annihilate them and trash their character. It's just,
and when we got in that disagreement with the people at the restaurant, that I got their email and I sent them a nice email the next day or 2 days later. And I said, hey, we were disagreeing on some things and just want to say I respectfully disagree, but because I just kind of felt bad about the situation. And we were arguing over masks. And it's like, what can we send our kids to school, to medical school? They become doctors. Like, there's that meme. We got to get our kids back in school so they can become doctors, and then nobody will listen to them in 40 years. We have to learn how to trust our medical professionals. And they don't know everything, but they've worn masks in surgery and in hospitals for years. For why? Not for, because it looks cool.
Yeah.
So it's like that's where America is. We're debating the dumbest thing sometimes.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not going to last forever. I mean, just for this period of time that we're in right now, whatever we can do to just slow the spread, keep it from getting out of control, and just get through this time. We will get through this. And in the meantime, just be respectful of other people and just,
respect educated people. It's like, we're talking about our professions, right? I've been doing this 20 years. You've been acting for 20 years plus.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, if people really want to learn about acting, they would ask somebody who's been in movies. If you have a chance to talk to Steven Spielberg and ask him everything about how to make a film, and then as soon as Steven Spielberg gives you this amazing TED talk, then you go, what does he know anyway? And then that's what I feel like we're doing to medical professionals right now. It's like, let me listen to this epidemiologist who has been studying.
They're doing this,
disease for 40 years. I don't like this answer. So, that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to if you like their answer or not, and if it's going to inconvenience you.
Exactly. I mean, that really what it's come down to. And at this point, I think it's I think we just got to think about what's best for just humanity in general. And right now, I think what's best for humanity is that we just show some more kindness to each other, some more understanding, some more compassion. And I think, it's, the more that we can just try to keep our cool during this period, because I know a lot of people are dealing with a lot of stuff right now. But whatever ways that you can find that outlet for yourself, whether it's going to work out, go for a walk, Learn how to play guitar.
Learn how to play, yeah. Bake
know?
bread. A lot of people are doing that during quarantine. But
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot of comments, and I think we're all on the same page. It's respect each other, and sad, social media has created so much hate for all the good social media has done, and it's done a lot of good too. It's united a lot of people. It's brought a lot of people together. It's how we're doing the show right now, right? People are interacting with us, and that's great. But it's also created such division and hate, and people that can hide behind computer screens and just spew awful things. And so that's the downside of social media. That and misinformation that's happening is just beyond me.
Yeah.
And it makes journalists more important than ever. You know, the colleagues
absolutely
at ABC, and I think they do their best every day, and they really want to get it right. And now there's this big contingency to be first all the time. And I think, and there's also, for whatever reason, people just like to throw out misinformation, and it's really a confusing time for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, it's all about getting the ratings, which is, all about getting the more sponsorships and that sort of thing. So it's easy to play into people's fear and stoke that fear just by saying whatever it is going to tap into people's emotional reaction to what they hear. Because we're most likely, that's why when you turn on the news, of which I can't even watch anymore, because every time you turn on the news at night, it's all about, who was shot and who was killed. And it's like, I've talked to reporters before, and I've said, why don't you put on, report more good news of what's going on here in Chicago? And they said, if we do that, the ratings go down and then we won't have a show anymore. So it's literally this catch-22 of we've got to report the news, but if we don't report the negative stuff, people will just turn into the sensationalism of it all.
Yeah, and cable news hasn't helped with a lot of the messages because it's more commentary and opinionated. But news journalists are sort of like doctors too. It's like there's so much there. For some reason, they've become like a target to blast, and you have journalists that are working hard to dig up investigative pieces or just to tell us what is going on in the world. And it's almost like sometimes they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. If 50 people sadly get shot over a weekend in Chicago and you don't mention it, now it's a cover up. Now, what's the media? Why isn't the media telling us? So there's so much. We would be talking for 3 weeks to get to the bottom of it. It's a lot. But I know there's a lot of great, hardworking journalists and honest journalists out there. And sadly, they're getting painted with the same brush that, every profession has good and bad, right?
Yeah. Well, to get us through a lot of this stuff, it's great to turn on Netflix and watch movies and watch our favorite actors, kind of take our minds off of the reality of what's going on. That's what I love about acting, storytelling, and all that good stuff. So as we wrap up here, Ryan, I'd love to ask you what your favorite movie is.
Back to the Future, hands down.
Oh, great movie.
We made 1985. I have so much Back to the Future paraphernalia back here, like the little DeLorean. I think you can see it's like right here.
Do you really? Oh, nice.
My sister-in-law just got me a Back to the Future book. I'm like a geek. I don't geek out on Star Trek or Star Wars or any of that stuff. It's Back to the Future. If they could make 20 of those movies, I'd watch them all.
Awesome.
What about you? What's your favorite?
My favorite movie, actually I just rewatched Dead Poet Society this week. And what an amazing movie. Robin Williams is absolutely phenomenal in this thing.
Yeah. Much different than Back to the Future, but very good movie.
Much different. Yeah. But Back to the Future, definitely great movie.
Magic. 8 years old when I watched it. It's magical, man.
So then it may be the same answer, but what was your favorite movie growing up?
Yeah, that was it. So
yeah.
Never changed. I mean, I have a couple of other movies that I really like. If I was going to get serious movie, The Insider is one of my favorite movies. And that's investigative journalism. Remember that?
Yeah, Russell Crowe.
And Al Pacino and Russell Crowe. It's an excellent movie. If I'm going to get, like a serious, powerful movie, and that was based on a true story that really changed,
industry.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And it was sort of one of the movies that inspired me to enjoy television and investigative journalism. Not that I ever wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But just to see how cameras work, and they showed a lot of behind the scenes. It was like, maybe this is what I want to go into. So it was influential.
Great movie. What's a movie you'd say you're embarrassed to say you love?
Mean Girls.
I haven't even seen it. What's it about?
That, and then I watch The Bachelor every Monday night. It's on tonight. I'm DVRing it.
Yeah, that's right. We're missing that and the national championship. That's coming up too.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can you not like The Bachelor? I mean, it is
awesomely bad TV. You got to watch it. Guilty pleasure.
Yeah. When I was dating my ex-girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, let's watch The Bachelor." I'm like, I don't want to watch that. And I'm sitting there, and before you know it, I'm like, wait, we got to watch. Like every week, I was like, we got to see what's going to happen. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah,
made.
We have a lot of the contestants on once they get voted off, and so my biggest question all the time is to them: is there mouthwash on set? And this is like pre-COVID, but that was my question when they're kissing everybody in 2 minutes. I know it's been edited, but still.
Right. So could you be on The Bachelor? Could you be The Bachelor and do that on live TV, have all these makeout sessions with all these beautiful women?
If I have to, Colin. If I have to do it, 32 women, I guess I would do it just for, just to be a good sport.
Yeah, I don't think my mom would. I would hear the end of it from my mom if I went on there. She was like, "You were kissing her, and then you kissed this." Blah, blah. Like, I mean, it's TV, Mama.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. It was
had to. Yeah,
television. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
People ask me if I would seriously do that show. Probably. I always said no. But I don't know. Nobody's ever called me. That would be a tough call if they called you and they actually offered you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How
about Dancing with the Stars?
If you're single at the time, by the way. Dancing with the Stars, I'd be terrible. I would be off in the first week.
Really?
Not a great dancer. I mean, I would be much better playing with the band while the other people dance. Not a great dancer, right? Yeah. What would you do? Dancing with the Stars? So you could actually probably get on that show.
Well, that's what I'm working on. So anyone out there, if you guys have any connections to the Dancing with the Stars producers, by all means, hit them up. I want to be on there, and you see my Irish. Yeah. Okay, a couple more questions. Who's your favorite actor?
Tom Cruise. It's the whole reason why we're friends. This is the closest I can get to Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I love Tom Cruise, man. No matter what movie he's in, he's great in it. I just watched Jerry Maguire the other day.
Great movie.
Is amazing. Yeah. And I guess that was supposed to go to Tom Hanks. And now and I think Tom Hanks ended up doing a movie that he beat. I think he did Forrest Gump instead, I want to say. But whatever, or was it Philadelphia? Whatever movie he did, he ended up winning the Oscar. So it was a good choice for both guys.
Yeah.
But I'll see any movie that Tom Cruise is in. And maybe we should put him in charge of all COVID safety protocols in the country.
I think so too. He would let everyone know his opinion on it. I just wish Tom Cruise would do more movies like Jerry Maguire instead of Mission Impossible 33. I mean, it's like when he's doing those movies like Magnolia, I mean, he's just phenomenal. And I don't know, for whatever reason, he's just chosen to do these big blockbuster movies when I think he's a better dramatic actor than he is an action hero.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Top Gun, though, the Maverick, whatever it's called. I think that's going to be good, hopefully. But Hollywood just beats to death every sequel. I mean, Rambo came out with a new movie, last year? And I think there's another Indiana Jones movie, I think, coming out.
Is there really? Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. And last question, who's your favorite actress?
Ooh, I don't know why Julia Roberts just popped in my head. Maybe that's because we'd mentioned her earlier, but I'll see the movie that she's in just as well. I mean, she's so good. Like My Best Friend's Wedding is probably that and Pretty Woman, two favorite Julia Roberts movies.
Yeah.
But she's so talented. Have you met her or worked with her?
Nope. I think I would, I'd probably pee my pants if I saw her. She's like one of my favorite, yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever been on set and you've been starstruck? Because you've worked with some pretty big actors.
Yeah, I was starstruck. Embarrassing moment with Cate Blanchett. I was at this Armani party and they were honoring Martin Scorsese, and we were at the Armani store on Fifth Avenue in New York, and there's an elevator in the store. So I'm upstairs, and I'm kind of looking over this balcony, looking at the clothes. All of a sudden, the elevator opens up, and boom, there's Cate Blanchett. And I'm just like, I was just like, she's one of my favorite actresses. Just stunning blue sequence dress. And I'm just like, she was like, hello. I was like, how you doing? And I was just like, I literally couldn't think of anything to say. And she was like, and she was like, yeah, so the party that way? And I was like, yeah. You're from Australia?
Good day, mate. Throw another shrimp on the barbie.
I literally asked her if she was from Australia. That was the only thing that I could think of in the moment. I was like, you idiot. And then she like walked away. She's like, yep. Nice to meet you. She walked away. I was like, oh my God. I was just like,
you're mortified. I've had moments, and you know what? My co-host Val has done a good job. The biggest lesson she has taught me is like when the show's done, it's over, it's gone, forget about it.
Move on.
Well on stuff. I would lay in bed at night and I'd be like, oh, I should have asked that question. I remember we had the Jackson 5 on. I mean, we had everybody there but Michael, right? And we had a great interview. And I see now I've at least forgotten the question that I wanted to ask, but I remember laying in bed that night I was thinking, oh, I should have asked that question about Michael or whatever it was. And it would make me crazy. I would go to work the next day about to do another show and I would still be thinking about it. And I had to learn you got to let it go.
Let it go. So I would do that with scenes after.
Okay.
Yeah. After leaving set, I'd be like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I would have said it this way, you got to just let it go.
Yeah. So you do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
I watched the documentary Jerry Seinfeld. He analyzes every single joke when he gets off stage and he plays them back and he's like, oh, I could have delivered it this way better. And it made me kind of look at him differently. It's like when I went and saw him live, then I was thinking he's thinking about what he's saying so that he's going to replay it later. And it kind of threw off his comedy show for me a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, you got to let it go. That's key.
Yep. And last question before we wrap up here, Mr. Chiaverini, what inspires you?
Ooh, what inspires me? I mean, we touched on it earlier, but positivity, I guess. I mean, what inspires me? Beautiful people, not aesthetically. I mean, you are very beautiful, Colin, but
Thank you, Ryan.
When I meet somebody on set and they're so selfless, right? And they just bring this incredible amount of positivity, whether they're working in a poor community or, disenfranchised community, and they're giving everything. That we've had people come on the show, Making Us Chicago Proud is our segment, and they're literally doing this all out of their own pocket for no gratitude. They're just doing it out of the kindness of their heart. And that's inspiring to me. When I do a segment like that, I always reach out to the person after and I will say, hey, how can I help? Do you want me to, I can MC an event for you, whatever you need, because we need more people like that in the world. And that's honestly probably the most inspiring thing I see is the amount of people. That's another thing that's great about our city. We have so many people that care so deeply about this city, and we do have our problems, but we have so many people really trying to make a difference. I mean, what you're doing with homes on the South Side. I mean, you don't think of it as being, a hero or being special, but that's an important thing. And you're changing the future for the next generation in this city.
Thank you. Yeah, no, for me, it's not just about rehabbing a house. It's about helping support these communities. And I'm also helping mentor a couple of kids right now from the South Side in getting their real estate licenses and just sharing with them what's possible, because a lot of these kids who grow up down there, they're not exposed to what is possible, what I think a lot of us take for granted. And just to see, their excitement that someone is taking an interest in them, I think that is first and foremost what is needed more so than anything. Just if you can tutor or mentor or reach out to just be that like big brother or big sister to some of these kids in some of these communities that sorely need it. I think if you're looking for something to do, feeling like you want more purpose or fulfillment in your life, I think that's one of the greatest things you could possibly do for yourself.
Right. And you can't help everybody, but everybody can help somebody, and that's the key.
Love it.
I'll extend a hand. And listen, some people say, oh, well, I don't have the platform to do that. You do. That's not true. Don't think of it that way. It's not about we all have a able body. If you have an able body, you can do something to help somebody. Somebody. That's your platform. It's not about how many followers you have on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. Of course, celebrity has some weight to it. When LeBron James says something or speaks, right? But that doesn't mean you can't be out in the community, in the city, putting boots to the ground and trying to help make a difference.
Yep. And to a kid, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. What really matters to them is that you're just there to listen, to encourage them and share with them what's possible and to find out what is exceptional and what their talents are. Like you said, find out what you're great at and what you're passionate about and do that, which is great advice, Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Colin. Well, thanks for having me, man. This has been fun. I can't believe
dude, thanks for being here.
It flew by. Now you really
know.
At night. I've never had a cup of coffee my whole life.
Okay, that's crazy. That's nuts. Ryan has never had a cup of coffee.
This is Bailey's.
Yeah, that's nuts. Anyway, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and can't wait to be on Windy City Live February 1st to talk about my movie, and then I can be on the hot seat again.
That's it. I'm tweeting out with the stars right now, man. I'll catch you February 1st.
Yes. All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah, man. See everybody
tonight. All right, everyone. Thank you again for being here. Another great episode. I love this. I love just having these amazing conversations with people. And again, if there's a silver lining in all of this, I think it really just comes down to just surrounding yourself with people like Ryan, who are just, up to amazing things, who are following their passions, following their dreams. And it really isn't about doing it perfect. I mean, as you heard from Ryan, there's plenty of times when he wishes he could have done something over, but the fact that he shows up every day and continually just lives what is important to him, what he loves to do. And you can tell it. If you guys have the opportunity, just go to Google, type in Windy City Live, watch him. He's amazing. And you can see me on there February 1st to promote, again, my movie that's coming out February 2nd, 100 Days to Live. And if you're looking for a little more inspiration and connection in your life, feel free to go to my website, colinegglesfield.com. Shoot me an email, info@colinegglesfield.com. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you for being here. Have a great rest of your week, and wish you all my best. Much love. Have a good night.